Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is Jordan with Drops and Stones, and today we're going to go ahead and cover something that's not quite sharpening related, but still in the same ballpark, and that's this case right here. Now, your sharpening system may or may not have a case that's made for it, and in my case, the TSprof just recently released a case for their sharpening system, but when I first got it, there wasn't an option. And even the option that they offer, whether you're TSprof, Edge Pro, or KME, may not suit your needs. It may not have the ability to hold everything that you'd like to hold in that case. So today I'm going to show you how to make a custom case to fit your sharpening system. Alright guys, so let's talk about the case. So here I have an Apache 3800 I got at Harbor Freight. Cost me about $50. Now, it doesn't really matter what case you use as long as it's the right size for what you need. So keep that in mind when you're looking for a case, whether it's an old briefcase, travel case, or anything in between. Once you've found your case, then you have to source your foam. Now this foam is called Kaizen Foam. You can get it just about anywhere, but the two places I recommend are either Amazon, because you get fast delivery, or KaizenSource.com. Now, when you order off Amazon, you're going to get these massive sheets. They're 2 feet by 4 feet, but the reason why I like that is because I actually plan to use more of this foam in my toolboxes, or maybe make a camera case and whatever other options I can think of, really. If you don't want to do that, Kaizen Source actually has a really cool option, and that's the fact that you can actually purchase the foam inserts according to the size of your case. Now, if you have some random case that you're using, it may not work for you, but if you're using like a Pelican case or an Apache case like this one, I mean, having a pre-cut foam insert makes life a lot easier. But I would buy a couple spares in case you mess up. That way you're ready to go. All right, so now that you went ahead and you got your case squared away and your foam squared away, we'll need some tools. So the tools that you'll need is a large snap-off knife, a small snap-off knife, and a Sharpie. And lastly, you'll need an optional butane torch lighter, and you'll see what that's for a little later. Alright guys, so we got our tools, we got our case, we got our foam, we're ready to get down to business. If you bought the pre-cut foam, you can skip ahead to the next chapter, and we'll go ahead and cover how that's done there. If you bought the large sheets of Kaizen foam, we need to discuss how to make it all fit nicely in here. So, basically what I did only works if you have a case that already has foam in it. So what I did is I took the old foam out of the case and I laid it on top of the Kaizen foam. I then traced the outline with a Sharpie, and then I used my large snap-off knife and I went ahead and I cut it out. It's important to note that when you're cutting the foam, you want to try and cut maybe in the middle, maybe even borderline outside of that line. The reason being is you want your foam to be a nice tight fit, okay? You don't want it to be loose because you don't want gaps on the side. Another important note is to try and hold your knife as vertical as possible. That way you can try to your best to ensure that your cuts are straight. The hardest part of this entire project is actually cutting the foam to shape, because it's so thick and you're cutting all the way through. It's very easy to cut at an angle, either left or right, and your foam just looks very awkward and sloppy. So please do keep that in mind. And basically you just repeat this process for however many layers you need. In my case it was 3. I did the lid, the very bottom, and the top of the bottom portion here, which is my thick piece of foam. So once you've done that, ready to go ahead and move on to actually cutting out the shapes that you need. Alright guys, so now that we got our base foam cut out, we're ready to start preparing to cut our individual items. So what you want to go ahead and do is you want to take your now cut Kaizen foam and you want to go ahead and lay out your objects in whatever fashion is most suitable towards your needs. Now one thing to note is if you decide to make a removable layer like I did, you want to keep heavy objects away from the sides. The reason being is when you go to pull it out, you may get some flex. And I learned that the hard way, so now I have my base, which is my heaviest object, closer to the center. Now, once you have everything laid out the way you want it, you're going to go ahead and start tracing items. Now personally, I like to trace and cut one item at a time. That way, if I decide to make any last minute changes, I can do so very easily. So once you've traced your first item, you want to go ahead and figure out how deep into this foam you need to cut. You do that by grabbing your small snap-off knife and basically holding it up to whatever side you're inserting into the foam of the said object anyways. And you will either go as deep as the object with the snap-off knife, or in my case, I did about 3/4 of the way of every object I did. That way I could easily grab it out. Now, if you want to get fancy, you can go ahead and create finger holes for all these items by basically taking a small coin, and once you've outlined your object, you would go ahead and take that coin, put it about halfway, down the exterior perimeter of this object that you outlined, and basically create that little half moon shape to create a finger hole for yourself. And you'd have to cut that out and pluck the foam and etc. Now personally, I find that that's kind of hard to do and it doesn't always look that great, so I avoided doing that. So now that you went ahead and you outlined your object, you're ready to, and you measured how deep you want it to go, you're ready to start cutting. So you'll cut on the inside perimeter of that Sharpie line. You don't want to cut on the line or on the exterior of the line. You want to cut on the inside perimeter because you want your object to sit nice and tight, especially if you have foam on the lid of your case and you plan on putting objects in there, because they will fall out if you don't cut it tight enough, okay? So once you've cut the complete perimeter of your object, all you have to do is basically get your fingers in there, and your fingers will feel how deep you cut, and you pull out that foam in what we call the snowplow method. You basically kind of just scoop and scoop and scoop until you've completely removed your object. Now, one thing to know is if you do a large item like my base here, the foam removal isn't exactly perfect. It doesn't always remove super even. And what I had to do is grab that butane torch lighter that I said was optional, and you just kind of how would you say this? You would barely tap that lighter occasionally just to lightly disperse heat, because this stuff will melt very quickly. So you just give it little pulses of flame, and it'll kind of start to even out that bottom foam to make it sit nice and flush on your foam. On smaller objects, it doesn't matter too much. If you want to do it to every option, every cutout, you definitely can, but it's not 100% mandatory. And basically, once you've gotten that done, you will simply just repeat this process for every single object you have on here. And it's actually really not that hard. Once you kind of got it down, you can do this in about an hour, hour and a half. Okay, depending on how complex you want to get. Alright, so now that you got all your foam cut out and all your items inserted, the last thing to talk about is just adding the removable layer if you so choose to. So all you have to do is just basically shove a screwdriver or any kind of bit driver. I use this 4mm hex bit that I have, and I just made 2 holes. And in those 2 holes, you just feed some 550 cord, you tie a knot, and you seal it off with some fire, just like you would do on any other paracord project. So that left me with the ability to remove this top layer here. And in the bottom, I have more Kaizen foam, which you see here, okay? And right now I have a stone carrier on one side, and I will have another stone carrier here on the other side. I'm just waiting for it to be 3D printed. And that's really it. I mean, you could store anything you want on the bottom. I chose to do stone carrier. It's up to you. But yeah, that's it. That's how easy it is to make this case. It's a little intricate, and you do kind of have to be good with your hands and have a steady hand. But if you're able to do that, it's a really fun project. Side note though, it is really, really messy. So if you do it in your house, make sure you're prepared to clean up a big mess. If you do it in your garage, same deal. It's gonna leave a lot of foam shards everywhere. But it's very, very, very easy to clean up, just time consuming. All right guys, and that's how easy it is to use this Kaizen Foam. I mean, you can use it for anything, and that's why I recommend buying those 2 foot by 4 foot sheets, because you can do your toolboxes, you can do your knife case, you can do a camera case, literally anything you need a nice custom foam insert for, this will do the job. It's really fun to use too. It's like an arts and crafts project. So I'm really glad I stumbled upon it. But speaking of stumbling upon it, I want to talk about how I found this. I was on knife forums, just accidentally by searching Google, and stumbled across this from a user named Kazimir. If I'm saying that wrong, I'm sorry. But he had the same issue. He couldn't find a case for his TSprof, so he decided to make one. And if it wasn't for me stumbling upon this post of his, I wouldn't have, figured this out either. So I always do my best to give credit where credit was due. So thank you so much, Kazimir, for giving me this idea. And, obviously I'm making a video about it now, so I hope it gets out to more people. So if you run into this Kazimir dude, make sure you say thanks to him on knife forums. And that's it, guys. That's all I really have. I really hope this helps you make some cases. I'd love to see your guys' results, so please hit me up on Instagram and share those results with me. I'd be happy to see them. And that's all I have for you guys today. Like, comment, subscribe, that's the norm. Share the video. Jordan out.